you've mentioned Jack Parsons, you've mentioned Bill Burroughs.
All the legends, yeah.
All the legends. But if you look at the life trajectory of all of these people, it ends in poverty, misery, insanity, suicide, addiction, alienation. Like, is there a single person in the world you're now describing for whom it ends well?
No. And that was, Tucker, that was one of the reasons that was really surprising researching Land is he mentions this guy, Kenneth Grant, who's a powerful musician, powerful magician, Aleister Crowley's secretary. And what Kenneth Grant said, very steeped in the occult English guy, he said about rock and roll, which again was the basis from the show of like rock and the occult. Kenneth Grant said, of course rock and roll is demonic. He goes, look at the way their lives end. He goes, of course this is horrible for you. So when I read that.
Yes, when you die at 27 of self-inflicted wounds, as famously so many of them did, that's not like a sign that you're on the right path, right?
It ends horribly for most of them, but the fact that Kenneth Grant had said that, this wasn't coming from a pastor, this is coming from Aleister Crowley's secretary. Right. I was like, this is the show. I was like, when you've got this guy saying that. So Tucker, when I found that Nick Land was influenced by this guy, Kenneth Grant, this famous, black magician, I was like, wait a second. That's when I knew I had more than a show. I'm like, wait, the goth legends, Bauhaus, Coil, Nurse with Wound. Again, we got to take a break. No one, I don't think, will ever bring up Nurse with Wound again on your show. So that's...
Yeah, I, of course, have literally no idea what you're talking about.
But the fact that there was a huge intersection between the industrial music scene and these hardcore occult practitioners and the current AI leaders in Silicon Valley, I was like, what have I stumbled into? What is going on here?
So when Aleister Crowley's secretary says, of course, rock and roll is demonic, basically, I mean, you've got the horseshoe effect
right
here. So here you have Aleister Crowley, like famous Satanist.
I mean, I would say he would say he's a Gnostic, but you do get into a thing of like, well, what is Gnosticism?
Yeah, well, that Satanist is my description,
right.
But it seems obvious to me. But whatever, a guy who's like worshiping demons,
heavily into the occult.
When his secretary says rock and roll is demonic, agreeing with like every the famous Baptist pastor,
every kid who cried because his dad took his Emerson, Lake and Palmer albums in the 70s,
I guess it all was very obvious, right?
Well, that's how I knew I could finally make the show is because there's.
I mean, of course it's demonic. Like, duh.
Well, I think a lot of it. I mean, you can't argue with Aleister Crowley's secretary. I think it's the main.
That's right.
But that was what was interesting. Why I finally wanted to do the show is for so many decades you couldn't do a show like this because everyone would get so defensive about rock and roll. It'd be like taking a child's toy away. Where it's like, can we do a show that has pastors, that has Christians, that has rabbis, that has all these people who talk about the religious aspect of music, but then could you also get these other people who are into the darker side of things to also talk about it? And for so long, especially with a lot of Christians, they would be so defensive about it. There's nothing wrong with it. I can do what I want with this. That you couldn't actually have made the show. It's only because rock and roll is, I'm going to be the millionth person to say this, is in many ways culturally dead or is so irrelevant that you can finally do a show on this.
It's like, yeah, it actually did infect America with some kind of incurable spiritual cancer that led to where we are now.
I mean, what was funny, there was the writer Theodore Dalrymple, and he
was a brilliant man.
Yeah, he's a brilliant writer, and he went to he was commissioned by The Spectator because he's such a smart, well-learned guy, and they thought it'd be hilarious to send him to an Oasis concert in England. And this is about in the 90s. And he goes there and he writes about it. And he says this is, rock concerts are essentially fascism with, the unity of the crowd and the shouting and the spirit of derelict behavior. And he said, and this is from The Spectator, this is a pretty conservative newspaper, he never got more pushback for anything he ever wrote in his career. And he's a man who's known to have many a hot take than when he criticized rock and roll. So as you know, as a journalist, whenever you have something that touches a nerve where people are like, you can talk about whatever you want, Tucker,
right?
But we won't let you talk about this, or we ask that you not talk about
prison. Yeah.
Here's something you may not have known. Back in 2015, the Congress of the United States repealed something called the Country of Origin Labeling Act. Now, why is this relevant to you? Well, it means, among other things, that when you buy beef at the supermarket that says made in the USA, it may not actually be. In fact, it could be, likely is, from a foreign country. It means that repackaging foreign meat can be enough to get the Made in USA designation. It's a lie. It's an absolute lie. Most people don't even know what's happening. So how can you be sure that the meat you're eating is from the United States and has been raised with the highest quality standards and is the tastiest? It's truly made here. Well, it's simple. You can go to our friends at Merriweather Farms. Merriweather Farms is an American small business. It's based in Riverton, Wyoming. We know the people who run it, and they're great people. And they have great meat. They ship the highest quality meat, raised free from growth hormones and antibiotics, directly to your doorstep. It's delicious. We eat it a lot, including at this table. These are Americans. These are American-made products. They are the real deal. Again, we eat that meat at this table from Riverton, Wyoming. They're the best. MerriweatherFarms.com. Use the discount code Tucker10 and you get an extra 10% off. Again, that's Merriweather Farms, MERIWETHER, farms.com. It's worth it.
It's interesting. So here's the distinction that I make in my mind. And it's between people who are participating in occult practices and have no idea that they are.
Right.
People who are, participating in abortion and don't see it, don't understand it as what it is, which is a child sacrifice ritual as old as Canaan, who are using hallucinogenic drugs, which are clearly a portal for demonic possession.
Sure. Really quick, the word witchcraft, I think in Greek it's pharmakai, I think it is. So there's always a natural link between putting yourself, they would say ecstatic states or altered states. That's always been there's a kind of lurid story behind the witch's broom in terms of what she's doing to work herself up into that state. But yeah, it's all about...
But she's doing it intentionally. I guess that's the distinction that I would make. In a secular country, a free to be you and me country, there are a lot of people who are doing things because they're fun or interesting or everyone around them is doing them and they don't understand the spiritual consequences. But then there's another category, and this is the dividing line in my head. There's a category of people who are seeking power from supernatural forces that they acknowledge are absolutely real.
Right.
And they're practicing an occult religion and they're doing it with self-awareness.
Right.
And I always felt like there weren't that many of those. But what I've learned from you, from our extensive text exchanges over the past year, is that there are actually some of those, quite a few of those.
Oh, but totally. I mean, look at it a couple ways. Among other things, Tucker, we're living through an explosion in, occult's a big, broad term.
Yes. What does it, can we define it?
I mean, it technically means the hidden. But there's a book written by these guys that they ran an occult bookstore in New York in the 70s. It's called Bull from Heaven or something like that. But one of their definitions, it had to do with elements of New Age philosophy and neo-pagan thinking, I think, was part of their definition. But it got broadened out a bit. Occult can also just mean interest in New Age, which accounts for like 80% of Americans, whether it's astrology, whether it's the concept of manifesting, which is, the law of attraction type stuff. That stuff is huge. And as I've talked with you about, it's also huge on the right in terms of MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. These ideas that we don't think of as being too goth or too occult or too out of the mainstream have become incredibly mainstreamed over the last decades. But I mean, even going back to 19th century America, they were there, and even 18th. But since the 60s, they've exploded. But they've become so ingrained in our lives, we don't typically notice their origins.
We don't see them as a cult.
No. But we're also living through a goth explosion. I mean, I know you're not a huge you sit in front of the TV and watch Netflix guy, but like shows like Wednesday, Stranger Things, horror is, in terms of box office, maybe not in terms of creativity, it's as big as it's ever been.
Really?
Oh yeah, Halloween. Some people half joke that Halloween will be on pace to overtake Christmas at some point, just because it's become like a year-round thing.
Halloween?
So, yeah, Halloween's huge. Yeah, every year it gets bigger. So there's an element of this, Tucker, where once you...
I hate to admit in public how out of it I am, but I had no idea. This is the first time.
Oh, yeah. No. Goth is huge. I mean, even singers like Billie Eilish and stuff. Goth is huge.
Because it leads to happiness?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, happiness. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's a huge thing. So it's one of those things that once you alert someone to how popular something is, it's like learning a new word where you're like, I've never heard this word in my life. And for the next week, all you hear is obstreperous. You're like, wow, you're like, that guy's obstreperous. You're like, there it is again. So this stuff is huge. But the reason I, as opposed to a lot of other people, was able to really notice it is, again, I was working on this show. I know the history of rock. I know a lot of, fair amount about politics. I know some of the tech stuff, a little bit of art history and literature. So when people were talking, when Nick Land or whoever's talking about, I learned Kabbalah from Kenneth Grant and Aleister Crowley and stuff. That I'm like, Kenneth Grant, he's the guy that got Bauhaus and a lot of the goth guys into witchcraft and industrial music. What is Nick Land, this academic who is incredibly influential on AI? What is he doing being into this?
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.